Good morning, dear participants. My name is Sibilla Martinelli. My colleague Juliane and I are the two Swiss national contact points for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. We are the specialists for this funding program here in Switzerland, let's say. Today, I will be the speaker and lead you through the slides, and Juliane will be in charge of the chat. And I would like to start by asking you about your expectations today. I'm going to launch a poll and I ask you to kindly participate. Now you should see the first question. What are you expecting of today's event? I ask you to kindly reply to this poll. And once the majority has answered, I will end the polling and let you know about the results. Okay. I give it another few seconds. And now I will end the polling and share the results with you. So majority of you is expecting important information on the MSCA doctoral networks. Some of you are expecting an overview over the MSCA, Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. A few of you are expecting information on how to write a successful doctoral networks proposal. And yes, that was it, basically. Thanks for participating in this poll. Actually, today, you should get an idea of what the MSCA doctoral networks are about. We will try to give you a good overview of this program. We will introduce the eligibility criteria. You will learn about the proposal structure, how proposals can be submitted, and how they will be evaluated. And last, but very importantly, you will also learn what kind of support and training you can get and where to turn to in case you're interested in setting up a consortium and applying for a MSCA doctoral network. All information presented today is based on the draft MSCA part of the work program. We do not expect major changes anymore, but the final legally binding information is expected to be published only beginning of June, at the end of May, or even only at the beginning of June. So in the next weeks. This presentation will be recorded and made available to you. We will send you the link in a follow-up email and upload it also on our YouTube channel, the recording. So if you want to rewatch or send the link to interested colleagues, please feel free to do so. It's also in our interest. We try to answer your questions during this event in the chat. But if questions arise later or for questions that couldn't be answered in the chat, your questions can also be sent to msca@uresearch.ch. Did you ever wonder why these actions are called the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions? Marie Curie was the name giver for this program because her life path and attitude reflect the main features of this program: excellence and mobility. She was a physicist and chemist who conducted pioneering research on radioactivity. And she was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. She was the first and the only woman to win the Nobel Prize twice, and the only person to win the Nobel Prize in 2 scientific fields. Also, she was the first woman to become a professor at the University of Paris in 1906. This was 15 years after she moved from Warsaw to Paris. She moved from Poland to France, so she could benefit from the training and scientific environment she needed to successfully do the research she wanted to do. All MSCA, and especially the MSCA doctoral networks, are about career development and training for excellent researchers. Researchers should have the possibility to acquire skills and knowledge they need So they will be able to take their careers where they want and be employable in different environments, be it in the non-academic or in the academic sector. Besides the doctoral networks, there are 4 other MSCA, Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. The MSCA staff exchanges, former RISE, Research and Innovation Staff Exchange, the MSCA postdoctoral fellowships, former individual fellowships, and then there is MSCA co-fund and MSCA and citizens. This was formerly called the Researchers' Night. The European Commission claims that there is an MSCA for every stage of a career. So if you want to know more about the one or the other action, I would like to invite you to check on the official MSCA website. Currently, unfortunately, it is not updated yet, but there will be soon more information available. Also on our research MSCA specific web page, you can also find a lot of information about the different actions. There are fact sheets and many other useful documents published there. So now before we start diving into the world of doctoral networks, I would like to know if you have ever been involved in one or the other MSCA. So I launched a second poll. Just a moment. So now I have, this is the wrong one. Excuse me for this. I have to launch the second poll now. And this is just to know if you have ever been involved in any of the MSCA. If you could please answer this question via the poll. I give it another few seconds and I check. I will stop the polling now and share the results with you. So it is more or less 50-50. So 54% of you have been involved already in any of the MSCA, and 46% of today's participants have never been involved in any of the MSCA. So we stop this here and I continue with the presentation. We will now look at the different aspects of the MSCA doctoral networks. So for whom they are and what they are about. This action is funding training networks for doctoral students, for doctoral candidates, as they call them now. So basically, doctoral programs which respond to well-identified needs in different R&I areas and which expose the researchers to the academic and non-academic sector and offer training in research related as well as competences relevant for innovation and long-term employability. As in all MSCA, also the MSCA doctoral networks focus strongly on research and transferable skills, also on career development, as I mentioned before, also on supervision and internationality. Doctoral networks are neither a research project nor a training program. They're a combination of both. So they're advancing an area of research and at the same time training doctoral candidates. That's how they should be understood. And these projects should thus be greater than the sum of their parts. Doctoral networks aim at increasing career prospects of researchers within and outside academia. They help researchers gain new knowledge, which will foster the conversion of ideas into products and services. And furthermore, one aim of these projects is also to enhance researchers' networks and also their communication capacities, and as well as the cooperation and transfer of knowledge between sectors and disciplines. So all in all, these networks should hopefully increase employability of researchers. If you look at the results of a study carried out within the EUROCSINT EU project, you see that typically less than half of doctoral graduates will be employed in academia immediately after graduation, and only less than 10 to 15% will achieve a long-term academic career. So the European Commission wants their funding schemes to prepare researchers for a career outside academia as well. You can see on this slide the wide range of researchers who, upon leaving the academic sector, find employment elsewhere. Moreover, the data from this study showed that out of the surveyed researchers, only 6% would consider returning to academia. The MSCA doctoral networks, as all MSCA, have a so-called bottom-up approach, meaning that research can be freely chosen, the topic of research, and all domains of research and technological development are eligible for funding. Consortia of universities, research institutions, and research infrastructures of businesses, including SMEs and other socioeconomic actors, can apply for funding. There are different ways an organization can participate in a doctoral network: as a beneficiary, as an associated partner, or as an associated partner linked to a beneficiary. I will briefly explain each of these modes of participation now. If an organization joins a consortium as beneficiary, they sign the grant agreement and have the responsibility for the proper implementation of the action. They contribute directly to the implementation of the research, transfer of knowledge, and training activities. In doctoral networks, this involves recruiting, supervising, hosting, training, or also seconding researchers and managing the funding programs. In doctoral networks, all beneficiaries must recruit at least one doctoral candidate. They are required to host at their premises and supervise recruited researchers or use associated partners linked to them to do so. Associated partners are entities which participate in the project, but without the right to charge costs or claim contributions directly from the EU. They contribute to the implementation of the project, but they do not sign the grant agreement. Associated partners may not employ the researchers. When associated partners are involved, beneficiaries are usually encouraged to sign a partnership agreement with them in order to regulate the internal relationship between all participating organizations. Associated partners linked to a beneficiary are organizations with an established capital or legal link with the beneficiary, which is not limited to the project nor specifically created for its implementation. These entities implement action tasks, for example, hosting and training of researchers in such doctoral networks. The associated partners linked to a beneficiary do not have the right to claim costs directly and may not employ the researchers under the project. The type of link and involvement of such entities must be clearly described in the proposal already and will be assessed as part of the evaluation. So applications must be submitted by a consortium, including at least 3 independent legal entities, each established in a different EU member state or Horizon Europe associated country, and with at least one of them established in an EU member state. Should none of them be entitled to a doctoral degree, a university or a consortium grouping or a grouping of academic or research institutions entitled to award doctoral degrees must be added to the project as an associated partner or an associated partner linked to the beneficiary. There is no minimum for associated partners. They can be added to a consortium in a way that their addition makes sense in the consortium and in a number that the consortium stays manageable. Not more than 40% of the EU contribution may be allocated to beneficiaries in the same country. The financial management of Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions differs considerably from other research projects in Horizon Europe. In the MSCA, the EU contribution is based on unit costs, which are expressed in person month. The budget will be automatically calculated from the information provided in the proposal using the rates and coefficients given in the work program. So the work program is the legally binding document for all Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. It is expected to be published within the next weeks, as I mentioned. Unit costs organized in several cost categories are used instead of funding rates in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. And the amounts of the unit costs are subject to annual changes, and they are usually they are stated in the work program for the respective year. So you can see on this slide the contributions of the EC for the doctoral networks. As explained, they are unit costs, so pre-calculated costs for the implementation of the action. The living allowance is a gross amount, including compulsory deductions under national law, such as employer and employee social security contributions and also direct taxes. The beneficiary must recruit each eligible doctoral candidate under an employment contract with full social security coverage. A country correction coefficient applies to the living allowance. So this is in order to ensure the equal treatment and purchasing power parity for all researchers. This is according to the different costs of living in the different countries. And the coefficient is the one applicable to the country of the recruiting beneficiary. The beneficiary must pay to the doctoral candidates at least the amount of the living allowance, minus all compulsory deductions on, as I mentioned, under national legislation. A top-up may be paid to the researchers in order to complement this contribution. And in addition to the living allowance, all doctoral candidates must receive a mobility allowance. This allowance covers the additional private mobility-related costs, for example, travel and accommodation costs, but not their professional costs under the action, which are covered by the research, training, and networking contribution. If the recruited doctoral candidate has or acquires family obligations during the action, then the family allowance is adapted. So having a family or receiving a baby will make the researcher, the doctoral candidate, eligible for family allowance. The long-term leave allowance contributes to the personal costs incurred by the beneficiaries in case of the researcher's leave, like maternity or paternity leave, sick or special leave longer than 30 consecutive days. And there's also a special needs allowance, which contributes to the additional costs for the acquisition of special needs items and also services for researchers with disabilities. The research training and networking costs, these contributions should cover, for example, costs for training and networking activities which contribute directly to the researcher's career development. For example, participation in conferences or trips related to work on the project, also training or language courses, seminars, books, library records, publication costs, etc. So, but also research expenses, visa related fees and travel expenses can be covered by this cost category. The management and indirect contribution should cover the beneficiary's additional costs in connection with the project. These are kind of indirect costs. Okay. The rates I just mentioned, they apply to the doctoral candidates devoting themselves to their project on a full-time basis. Researchers can, of course, in agreement with the supervisor and the beneficiary and with prior approval by the granting authority, they can implement their project on a part-time basis. Yes, such a request is limited to personal or family reasons. And in cases of part-time work, the doctoral candidates must dedicate at least 50% of their working time to the MSCA project, which is funded, yeah. And the recruiting beneficiary should report the costs as pro rata of the applicable full-time unit contributions. Okay, the overall EU contribution for MSCA doctoral networks is limited to a maximum of 360 person months. However, for industrial or joint doctoral programs, the EU contribution can go up to a maximum of 540 person months. This is to further incentivize the development of these schemes. So through an increase of the total EU contribution, MSCA doctoral networks are encouraged to lead to either industrial or joint doctorates. Joint doctorates represent a highly integrated type of international, intersectoral, and multi or interdisciplinary collaboration in doctoral training. They lead to the delivery of a joint, double, or even multiple doctoral degree recognized in at least 2 EU member states or associated countries. So researchers must be enrolled in a doctoral program leading to the award of a doctoral degree in at least 2 member states or associated countries for joint doctorates. Applicants, so institutions in the consortium must provide at the time of the submission of the proposal a pre-agreement to award a joint degree to the doctoral candidates. The proposal should indicate from which institutions a researcher is expected to receive the degrees. Joint doctorates must set up a joint governance structure with joint admission, joint selection, supervision, monitoring, and also joint assessment procedures. Through industrial doctorates, doctoral candidates will step outside academia and develop skills in industry and business by being jointly supervised by academic and non-academic organizations, both of which can be established in the same EU member state or Horizon Europe associated country. In order to reach the objectives of the industrial doctorates, at least one of the 3 independent legal entities must be from the academic sector, and at least one must come from the non-academic sector. So there is this special condition for the eligibility of such consortia. And there's another requirement that doctoral candidates must spend at least 50% of their fellowship duration in the non-academic sector in such industrial doctorates. So it's time for a third poll. I will open it now, and I would like to ask from you for which type of doctoral networks will you go? I launch the polling now. Will it be the regular type or rather the industrial doctorates or the joint doctorates? So if you know already, I give you some time to answer this poll and then I will share the results with you. So maybe 2-3 more seconds to allow you typing your answers. And I end the polling now and I share the result with you. So as you see, 77% of today's participants are interested mostly in the regular type, 9% in industrial doctorates and 14% in joint doctorates. So we go on here. The duration of a doctoral network project should not exceed 48 months from the starting date, which is set out in the grant agreement. And this is including the time needed to recruit and select the doctoral candidates. The duration of each fellowship on the basis of full-time employment is minimum 3 and maximum 36 months. MSCA doctoral networks should exploit complementarities between participating organizations and should foster the sharing of knowledge and also networking activities. For example, through the organization of workshops and conferences. And the proposed training activities should respond to well-identified needs in various research and innovation areas. Doctoral networks should develop substantial training modules, including digital ones, addressing key transferable skills and competences common to all fields, and fostering also the culture of open science, of innovation and entrepreneurship. In particular, the doctoral networks should adequately prepare doctoral candidates for increased research collaboration and also information sharing made possible by new, like by digital technologies. This can be collaborative tools or opening access to publications and to research data according to the FAIR data management, also public engagement and citizen science or other things. Intersectoral secondments of researchers of doctoral candidates to other participating organizations, including the ones in third countries, are encouraged, but of course only when relevant, when they are feasible or also beneficial for the researcher, and if they are in line with the project objectives. This is another measure which will increase the employability of researchers outside academia if they go on intersectoral secondments, for example. And the secondments are eligible for up to 1/3 of the actual months spent implementing the research training activities under the action. So up to 1/3 of the duration of the fellowship. Each MSCA doctoral network should have a clearly identified steering board, which is coordinating the network-wide training and research activities, and which is establishing continuous communication and exchange of best practices among the participating organizations in order to maximize the benefits of the partnership. The supported researchers within a doctoral network project must be doctoral candidates. So they should not already be in possession of a doctoral degree at the date of the recruitment into the consortium, into the project. The researchers must be enrolled in a doctoral program. And these researchers, the recruited researchers, can be of any nationality, but they must comply with the mobility rule, which says that they must not have resided or carried out their activity, their main activity, like work or studies, in the country of the recruiting beneficiary for more than 12 months in the 3 years prior to the recruitment date. There are exceptions, for example, compulsory national service or short stays such as holidays or time spent also by researchers as part of the procedure for obtaining refugee status are not taken into account for this mobility rule. The MSCA are not only based on the principle of physical mobility, so that researchers who receive funding have to move from one country to another to acquire new knowledge and skills and competencies, but researchers are also strongly encouraged to move between sectors and disciplines. And coming with this so-called triple I dimension, is also a strong collaboration with industry and SMEs. Whether enrolled in a regular, in a joint or industrial network, particular attention is paid to the quality of supervision and mentoring agreements, as well as career guidance of the doctoral candidates. New guidelines on supervision were issued earlier this year. So they are available on our specific MSCA web page on the Eurosearch website. Doctoral network proposals will be evaluated by one of 8 main evaluation panels. Those are chemistry, social sciences and humanities together, economic sciences, information science and engineering, environmental and geosciences, life sciences, mathematics, physics. Yes, that's the 8. Each panel will establish 2 ranked lists. No, actually, no, that's it. um, there will be separate ranked lists for the different modes. And now I would like to ask you in a 4th poll in which panel you would belong. So I will just we'll launch the polling now, and I would like to ask you to indicate in which panel you would belong. So we have 10 answers. I will wait some more until more people have answered this poll. So I will end the polling now, and we see here when I share the results with you that this is kind of equally distributed. There's a little peak, 29% in the social sciences and humanities, also life sciences with 19%, but otherwise it's kind of equally distributed across the different panels. So I stop share these results and close the polling again, and we continue. The applications will be evaluated by experts based on the award criteria excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. So this is the same as in Horizon 2020. The proposals will be evaluated against the doctoral network award criteria, applying weighting factors. And these are set out in the work program. For the weighting factors are for excellence 50%, for impact 30%, and for implementation 20%. Proposals are evaluated remotely, and evaluation scores will be awarded for each of the 3 criteria. Yes, all of the separate elements of each criterion will be considered by the experts in their assessment. Evaluation scores will be awarded for each of the 3 criteria, and each criterion will be scored out of 5. The scores, they can be awarded with a resolution of 1 decimal place, and they will be subject, as I said, to a weighting factor. Then a weighted total score will be calculated based on the scores of the 3 individual criteria. And application scoring equal or above 70% will be considered for funding. Of course, within the limits of the available call topic budget. Applications with a score lower than 70% will be rejected. For this year, there are not yet any resubmission limitations, but such are expected for the calls from next year onward. This they introduced to manage the high demand here. If I claim here that every doctoral network proposal is composed of part A and part B, I have to add a big disclaimer also here. We don't have a proposal template for the MSCA yet. But based on what we know for the other programs in Horizon Europe, we strongly assume that there will be these two parts again for this year's call. But this has to be verified upon upon call opening when the templates, the proposal templates will be published. And we expect this, the publication is expected upon call opening, which will be end of May or beginning mid-June. So part A and B. Part A contains administrative forms, contains general information, administrative data of participating organizations. Budget is also part in part A, ethics, and different declarations related to eligibility. Part B is the core part of the proposal, the heart basically of the proposal. It contains the details of the proposed research, not only of the research, but also of the training activities and a lot of other information. Yes, and also practical arrangements planned to implement these things. This part will be used by the experts to undertake their assessment during evaluation. The award criteria are already known. We have them from also the draft of the final version of the draft of the MSCA part of the work program. And the structure of the doctoral network proposal will be along the content of these criteria. So as you know, there are three parts: excellence, impact, and implementation. And the excellence part of the proposal is about the quality and pertinence of the project's research and innovation objectives, and about the extent to which they are ambitious and go beyond the state of the art. Furthermore, this part is about the soundness of the proposed methodology, including interdisciplinary approaches, consideration of the gender dimension, and other diversity aspects if relevant for the research project, and also the quality of open science practices. And furthermore, also the quality and credibility of the training program should be assessed in this part of the proposal, in the excellence part. And this is including transferable skills, multidisciplinary aspects, intersectoral and gender aspects, as well as other diversity aspects. And a last part of this excellence part will be about the quality of the supervision. And this is including also mandatory joint supervision for industrial and joint doctorate projects, which should be described in this subchapter of the excellence part. Then the impact part of the proposal should cover the contribution to structuring doctoral training at the European level and to strengthening European innovation capacity. Yes, and this is including the potential for a meaningful contribution of the non-academic sector to the doctoral training, of course, as appropriate to the implementation mode and research field. And this includes also developing sustainable elements of doctoral programs. So this should be covered in the first subchapter of the impact part. Then in a second, a second subchapter is about the credibility of the measures to enhance career perspectives and employability of researchers, and about the contribution to their skills development. In a third subchapter, the sustainability and quality of the measures to maximize expected outcomes and impacts should be described. And there is also the dissemination and exploitation plan included, also the communication activities in this third subchapter. And finally, and new this year in a fourth subchapter, this fourth subchapter should cover the magnitude and importance of the project's contribution to the expected scientific, societal, and economic impacts. So the major changes are within this part, which is about the magnitude and importance of the project's contribution to expected scientific, societal, and economic impacts. So here you're asked to think big, basically. Impact is more than just immediate tangible results in the form of papers or employable PhDs. It is not only academic impact, but also societal and economic that has to be described. And it can have impact in multiple areas like cultural, economic, educational, environmental, political, social. It can have impact in one of the 5 EU missions or related fields. Whereas outputs are the products of research in kind of short term, the outcomes are people using these products. This is midterm rather, and impact is eventually long term changes in society which result from outputs and outcomes. So you should show in the project the pathway from the output, which can be a publication, an employable researcher, to outcome, where the researcher might work, where the publication will be of further use, to the impact, which can include the eventual change in behavior or impact on for example, a climate change to which you contribute. And finally, the third part of the proposal is the implementation part. This part of the proposal is about the quality and effectiveness of the work plan, including assessment of risks. So, and also the appropriateness of the effort assigned to the different work packages. And then in a second sub-chapter, you should cover the quality, capacity, and role of each participant, including the hosting arrangements and extent to which the consortium as a whole brings together the necessary expertise. This year's call is expected to open on 27th May. In fact, there are rumors that it won't be until mid-June. Unfortunately, we cannot give you more precise information here. Still, for the moment, the EC sticks to the closing date of this call, which will be the 16th November this year. And the call budget is roughly 400 million euro. In Horizon 2020, so in the former framework program of the European Union, the now doctoral networks were called ITNs, Innovative Training Networks. And looking back on the last 7 years, we can say that in the different years between 2014 and 2020, between 1153 and 1714 ITN project proposals have been evaluated per call, of which between 106 and 147 could be funded. So the success rate has been constantly low throughout the last 7 years. And with regards to managing the demand, the EC introduced a restriction on resubmissions, which will be active only from 2022 calls onwards. So importantly, this restriction on resubmissions doesn't apply to the 21 calls. Here are some things to consider before you start writing a proposal, or also during the writing process of your proposal. First of all, choose your network partners wisely. It's a lot about quality and trust if choosing your partners for a future collaboration. Then plan your deliverables and milestones adequately. So not too many of them, less is sometimes more. Plan a sustainable recruitment strategy. and inquire for local training opportunities. And finally, also try to actively communicate with your consortium. Proposal submission will still be done through the funding and tenders opportunities portal. This was also the case in Horizon 2020. It will still be this portal, um, which is the entry door for many things, also for proposal submission. And also from this portal, from the call page, you can have access to all the important documents like the work program or also the guides for applicants that will be published on the respective call pages. And again, only upon call opening. And once they will be available, I would strongly advise to familiarize yourself with the guide for applicants and also with the MSCA part of the work program, which is setting out more the policy backgrounds. So in case you would like to apply for MSCA doctoral network and start the writing process of such a proposal, this is also valuable information you can find in this document. If you are looking for partners to build a consortium, there are various ways you can go. The EN, the Europe Enterprise Network, has a partner search partner search function or platform. There is also a partner search available directly on the EU funding and tenders opportunities portal. And also on the platform called Euraccess. There is a section on partnering. And finally, also there is an expression of interest page on the Net for Mobility Plus project, which is a EU-funded project run by MSCA NCPs worldwide. And this is just to let you know that we offer support regarding proposal writing. So once you made your mind up in setting, in putting up a consortium and planning an application for these doctoral networks, and if you start writing a proposal, so we will be happy to support you with that. On the one hand, we offer applicants training, which is a one-day online event. And also we produce an annotated guide for applicants. So the guide for applicants is basically a user's manual for the doctoral networks. And we try to compile tips and tricks and complement the guide for applicants with our writing tips, basically. And I have to say, because we don't have unlimited resources, we limit these services, the support services for proposal writing, to Swiss participants or coordinators. But depending on where you are in the world, you can get the support you would like from the worldwide net of national contact points for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. You can either approach the NCP in the country where you are currently, or one in the country of the project coordinator. You find the contacts of my colleagues worldwide via this link on this slide. Now, as a non-EU member state, Switzerland has to negotiate its association to Horizon Europe, to the EU Framework Programme for Research and Innovation. These political negotiations are still ongoing currently. And what we can say today is that Switzerland expects to be able to participate in Horizon Europe and is fully committed to this objective. So the goal is the full association of Switzerland to Horizon Europe. But as we at Research aren't active on a political level, I would like to redirect you to our colleagues at the State Secretariat for Education, Research and Innovation. For detailed information on this topic, please check their dedicated web page. This is accessible via the link on this slide. But if you have specific questions, you can, of course, always get in touch with us. We will send you a follow-up email containing all the information we gave you during this last hour, approximately. And this follow-up will contain, on the one hand, the recording of this event, and on the other hand, also a handout with more information than on the slides, just in a written format. And the handout will also include these links to the Funding and Tenders Opportunities portal, to the Marie Curie Actions website, to the EUREXESS portal, for example. And here's a pointer to our EUResearch network, which is divided into 10 regions in Switzerland and is here for your support. And please don't hesitate to get in touch. And now I would like to know from you if your expectations of today's event were met. And for this, I launched the fifth poll of today's event. And I kindly ask you to reply to this question, where your expectations of this event met. So up to now, it looks good. So I'm going to give it another 2-3 seconds, and then I stop the polling. Okay, I do that now, and I share the results with you. So for 95% of today's participants, the expectations of this event were met. For the 5% whose expectations we didn't meet, you can always get in touch with us via phone or via email, and we try to provide you the information that you need. So I stop sharing the results and I close this, and I would just like to tell you that we will be very happy to answer your questions and also to support you. So please send us emails, call us via telephone. But here I would like to close this event and thank you a lot for joining us this morning. Have a very nice day. Thank you.